Am I the antagonist for asking my husband to parent? My husband, 29 years old, and I, 27 years old, are first-time parents. In September, my daughter, 2.5 months old, had her first family outing at her cousin's, 1-year-old, birthday party. Historically, I have had issues controlling my anxiety, and although I am not taking any medications for it right now, and I am still experiencing postpartum anxiety, PPA, I feel it is much more controlled than it has been in the past. Because of this, I prefaced our outing by discussing my anxiety with my husband and telling him that I was anxious about a few specific things. I knew some unnamed sickness was going around because our niece, the birthday girl, had something a few days before, so I did not want our daughter to get sick. I told him I would be uncomfortable asking his family to do or not do certain things, and they would likely take it better coming from him, and he agreed. I handle my family, and he handles his. So I asked him if we could 1. Keep the kids away from her, or at least make sure to wipe her hands frequently, and 2. Adhere to the no kissing the baby rule. He agreed. Fast forward to the party. I gave my husband our child so I could go to the bathroom, and I returned to find her in my mother-in-law's arms. Not a problem, but she disappeared for a while. Also not a problem, she's very trustworthy. And came back showing me and my husband photos of the kids holding our daughter. My husband avoided eye contact with me. It was one of those things I just tried not to overthink, and I didn't want to argue about it, so I took our daughter from my mother-in-law and cleaned her hands and face, just in case. Later, my husband stayed visiting with his family while I took our daughter to a quiet room to feed and change her. When I returned, his cousin's wife wanted to hold her, and I handed her over without hesitation. Before I went to grab myself food, I whispered to my husband, "Please make sure nobody kisses her." For the rest of the evening, my husband was giving me the cold shoulder, and I really didn't know why. Tonight, 3 weeks later, I was telling him that when we see my extended family next weekend, we will have to make sure they do not kiss our daughter. He exploded on me, saying that I pissed him off at the party weeks ago and treated him like he's incompetent by asking him to not let his family hold our child. He said that while I was absent at the party, he and his cousins were discussing that it is sick season and how dangerous it is to kiss babies, and I acted like they were all stupid and incapable by asking him to keep an eye on our baby while they held her. I responded to him by explaining that 1. I was not there for that conversation, so how could I have meant it that way? 2. I fully intend to hold my family members to the same standards when we see them. And 3. We agreed on our rules before the party, one of which he did not even ask his mother to adhere to. I feel like his anger towards me is confusing. My intentions are clearly to protect our child, but now I'm wondering if I overdid it. You were clear about your concerns and boundaries regarding your daughter's health before the party, and your husband agreed to them. It's understandable that you wanted to protect your child from getting sick, especially considering she was only 2.5 months old at the time. Your husband's anger towards you seems misplaced. It's not fair for him to accuse you of treating him like he's incompetent, or to keep his feelings bottled up for weeks without communicating them to you. It's also worth noting that you were not present for the conversation that apparently took place between him and his cousins, so you couldn't have known the context. It's important for both parents to be on the same page when it comes to their child's safety and well-being. You should have an open and honest conversation with your husband about your concerns, his expectations, and how to handle similar situations in the future. Am I the antagonist for not initially considering selling a family home back to the family? My grandfather left his house to my aunt. The house had been in the family since it was built in 1939. My aunt had taken care of my grandparents late in life, and they had left the house to her because my uncle had taken his part of his inheritance when he was younger, and my father was in a more stable financial position at the time and was willing to give up his portion of the inheritance. One of my cousins briefly lived at the home with his wife, but they ultimately moved out. Years later, I was looking for a house with my ex and had inquired about the house. My aunt was willing to sell the house to me for $73K, 2/3 of the fair market value at the time, because my aunt was more stable and felt obligated to my father to cover for his 1/3 of the inheritance from the house to help make the house more affordable for me at the time, as I was having a difficult time financially. Eventually, my ex and I split up, and I paid her back the portion of the down payment she had contributed. I eventually got accepted to grad school, started dating another woman, graduated, got married, and started working. My wife and I have put a lot of work into the house and had intended on staying, with numerous renovations. However, after having spent over $15K on plans and a land survey and receiving quotes north of $400K, my wife and I started looking and found the right home. I discussed the matter with my cousin, who recognized the awkwardness of the situation with my aunt. He suggested giving her the option of purchasing the house, which I thought was reasonable. The following morning, I got an angry message on Instagram from my cousin's wife, accusing me of stealing my cousin's inheritance, asking what I did to deserve getting the house for such a reduced price, and taking advantage of my aunt's guilt over receiving the entire inheritance to turn a profit on the house. She effectively said no one in the family trusts me anymore and called my wife a gold digger. In short, we weren't even sure how to approach the topic with my aunt, let alone consider the ethical implications of selling a family house that was sold at a discount. It hadn't crossed my mind that the right thing to do might be to gauge my family's interest in buying back the house. I eventually spoke with my aunt about the house and offered to sell it back to her for the sale value of $73K, well below the current market value. She responded that she had no interest, and also mentioned on her own accord that she had sold the house to me at that price as a favor due to the arrangement with my father. I even went out of my way to call my cousins individually and offer them the house for the previous sale price of $73K. Neither showed any interest. Am I the asshole for not initially considering the possibility of selling the house back to my family? Does offering the house to them after the fact make amends? Should I give them the profit from the house after it is sold? You inherited the house from your aunt under specific circumstances, including your father's agreement to cede his portion of the inheritance. It was a mutually agreed upon arrangement that allowed you to purchase the house at a reduced price. You made genuine efforts to include your family in the decision-making process, discussing it with your cousin and offering the house back to them at the original sale price. However, they showed no interest in buying it. You have fulfilled your responsibilities by offering the house back to your family, but they declined. Hence, you have no obligation to give them any profit from the sale. The house is now rightfully yours, and you should do what is best for yourself and your new family. Am I the antagonist for showing my family applicants a home via Facetime without asking the landlord? Recently, I was asked to leave a landlord's townhome because I didn't ask for permission to show my family the home via Facetime. This is something I've never encountered before during my home search. I was driving to the home with a mix of excitement and anxiety since we have been struggling to find a good, safe place at a reasonable price. When I arrived, I texted the landlord to ask if it was okay for me to walk around the yard and view the home from the outside. He agreed as he was running late by 10 minutes and wasn't there yet. So, I decided to FaceTime my sister and brother-in-law to show them the landscape and the house. I was also inspecting the area for any potential hazards. I noticed an empty cigarette box on the porch, which made me wonder if there was a previous smoker in the unit. When the landlord arrived, he introduced himself and asked for my name. I told him my name and mentioned that my sister would be watching via FaceTime since she couldn't be there in person. My sister and brother-in-law are in a different state, currently looking to relocate so they couldn't make it. While exploring the home, I noticed a strange smell but couldn't identify what it was. The landlord mentioned that the carpet was new and the walls had been painted. I complimented him on the improvements and said it looked beautiful, which my sister agreed with. Then I started asking about whether there had been a smoker in the unit. The landlord replied no. Following that, I inquired about any history of black mold, to which he rudely responded, "I have no idea." I whispered to my sister on the second level, expressing my dissatisfaction with his answer. My brother-in-law, who was busy taking care of their baby in the same room as my sister, asked me to show him the unit briefly. After seeing it, he commented that it was a very nice place. Throughout the viewing, the landlord seemed disinterested, particularly after I asked about the black mold. When I asked him a question about the applications, he replied, "Well, if you get off the phone, maybe I'll answer you." This puzzled me, so I told him, "Sir, this is my family on FaceTime with me. They are also applicants." He then responded, "Well, they should have been here. You recorded in my house without my consent." I exclaimed, "What?" "I informed you that my sister would be watching via FaceTime." He stated, "That was a directive, not a question." Feeling frustrated, I ended the call with my family and asked him, "What exactly do you need to discuss with me without my family present?" He replied, "You did not ask to record. Now please leave. My sister and I suspect that this situation may have been influenced by our race, especially after researching the area and realizing we would be in the minority. On one hand, you did inform the landlord beforehand that your sister would be watching via FaceTime, and there was no explicit prohibition against recording mentioned. You were simply following through on what you had previously discussed. Additionally, it's understandable that you wanted to include your family in the viewing, especially if they are potential applicants as well. However, it's also worth considering the landlord's perspective. They may have felt uncomfortable with the recording without explicit consent, despite your earlier mention of FaceTiming. It's possible they had concerns about their privacy or the property being recorded without their knowledge, which they may see as a violation of their rights. Regardless of the intentions behind the landlord's actions, it's important to address any potential racial bias you may have experienced. If you genuinely believe that race played a role in the landlord's decision to ask you to leave, it's essential to consult with a professional or legal expert who can help you address and navigate this situation properly. In conclusion, while the landlord's reaction may have been disproportionate, it's crucial to consider both perspectives and seek appropriate advice for dealing with any potential racial discrimination. Am I the antagonist for telling my neighbors that they need to help their daughter cope? I recently purchased a semi-detached house, and it's turning out to be much more demanding than I expected. We have to completely strip everything down to the bare structure. My new neighbors are somewhat mysterious. I know there is a father and a daughter, with the daughter having additional needs. For the past 3 months of our renovation work, she has been having intense screaming episodes whenever we use anything remotely noisy. I'm aware there is also a son and presumably a mother, although I've never seen her. Recently, we've started working on the bathroom, which happens to align with their daughter's bedroom. This particular room has proven to be the most challenging so far. We have to remove everything: the sink, bathtub, shower, toilet, windows, and even the walls. It's quite a mess. We began the bathroom renovations 4 days ago, and immediately she started screaming. Her screams were so loud that we could hear her over our tools, even with our ear protection on. The next day, her father knocked on our door and explained that she has autism and we are disturbing her personal space. Apparently, the vibrations from our work caused something to fall off a shelf and break. I apologized and he seemed satisfied. Later that evening, he returned from work and unleashed his anger upon me and my brother, who is helping me with the renovations. He called us inconsiderate bastards and then left. Yesterday he was livid, his face red with rage. He asked if we were truly heartless enough to keep overwhelming his daughter. I caught a glimpse of her, and she did look extremely distraught. So I apologized again but explained that I had to complete the renovations. Today he came knocking once more, demanding us to stop drilling. He explained that his daughter had been having meltdowns continuously, and it has become an ongoing battle for days. Both he and she were exhausted. I apologized yet again, but mentioned that it was his responsibility as a father to assist her in coping, and we shouldn't have to halt our work for a child we barely know. He left extremely angry, and ever since my wife has been ignoring me. We are expecting a baby, and she has been calling me an asshole, arguing that we should expect the same level of consideration when our baby arrives. I understand why the father is frustrated, but I am on a strict timeline, and my brother and I are essentially handling this renovation alone, except for hiring professionals for tasks outside our expertise. So am I the asshole in this situation? While it's understandable that you have a time crunch and need to continue your renovations, it's also important to consider the impact on your neighbors, especially when it involves a child with additional needs. You were initially apologetic when the father approached you, but your subsequent response of telling him it's his job as a father to help his daughter cope suggests a lack of empathy and understanding. It's important to prioritize the well-being of others, even if they are not known to you. Your wife's reaction and the negative response from your neighbors further indicate that your actions may have been inconsiderate. It might be worth apologizing again and considering alternative solutions or compromises that can address both your renovation needs and the comfort of your neighbors, such as scheduling less noisy work during specific times or offering to help with soundproofing. Am I the antagonist for telling my roommate his girlfriend cannot have a key to our apartment? Myself, female 25, and my boyfriend, male 24, live with one of our friends, male 24. Our roommate started dating his girlfriend, female 20, around 8 months ago. Ever since the start of the relationship, he has given her his spare key and allowed her to stay in the house unattended for several hours at a time. My boyfriend and I bit our tongues for several months, hoping to become friends with his girlfriend. But instead, she rarely acknowledges us and shows no interest in getting to know us. We have attempted to have conversations with her multiple times, but it feels like we're talking to a wall. Around 3 months ago, we brought up our concerns with our roommate, and his response was basically, "Would you prefer the front door to be unlocked all the time?" It was an unproductive conversation. Then a month ago, his girlfriend lost the key, and he asked us for a new one. The apartment belongs to my boyfriend's family. When we gave him the new key, we asked him to keep it for himself. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Fast forward to 2 days ago. My boyfriend and I returned from a short vacation to find his girlfriend alone in the apartment, with the key we had recut for our roommate sitting on the dining room table. We took the key, and once his girlfriend thought we were gone, she left without talking to us. We sat down with our roommate once again and expressed our concerns. We told him that we want to get to know his girlfriend better, but right now it feels like there is a stranger in our home, without supervision. As guests, we believe she should be accompanied when entering and leaving. He responded by saying she won't get to know us because she's too shy, and it's our responsibility to make her comfortable in our home. He also urged us to trust her because we trust him. He had a conversation with her that didn't go well, and she apparently hates us now and doesn't want to come over if we're present. This doesn't solve anything and makes me feel even more uneasy, knowing that they will plan for her to be in our house, where all our belongings are when we're not around. I'm at the point where I believe we need a lock on our bedroom door and a camera on our bedside table. All I wanted was to get to know her better and in turn feel more comfortable about her being in the house and having a key. But now we're dealing with a volatile situation, and our roommate is extremely upset with us. I feel guilty for upsetting our roommate and good friend, and I'm left wondering if we're the ones in the wrong. So, am I the asshole? You and your boyfriend have valid concerns about your roommate's girlfriend being in your shared living space unsupervised. It is understandable that you want to feel comfortable and secure in your own home. You have made efforts to get to know her and include her in conversations, but she has shown no interest in reciprocating. Your roommate's response of dismissing your concerns and expecting you to make her feel comfortable is unfair and puts the burden on you. It is reasonable for you to want a key to your apartment to be in the possession of someone you trust, and not in the hands of someone you barely know. It is also understandable that you feel uncomfortable with her being in your home when you are not there. Your roommate's girlfriend's reaction, and their apparent plan to have her in the apartment when you are not there, further supports your concerns. It might be necessary to consider additional measures like installing a lock on your bedroom door for added security. Overall, you have tried to communicate, express your concerns, and find a resolution, but it seems like your roommate is not willing to consider your perspective, which is unfair. Am I the antagonist, not wanting my adult cousin with Down syndrome to attend my wedding rehearsal dinner? I'm getting married this week. My aunt, who is currently not in town and won't be attending the wedding, contacted my mom asking if it was a mistake that her family only received an invitation to the wedding and not the rehearsal dinner. My mom, who contributed a significant amount toward the wedding expenses, actually invited my aunt to the rehearsal dinner without consulting us. When I discussed this with my fiancée, she strongly disagreed. Her main concern revolves around my 21-year-old cousin with Down syndrome. While my cousin's behavior can be challenging, it is not solely limited to that. She often seeks attention and tends to make situations all about herself. Moreover, my cousin has insulted my fiancé's appearance and criticized her clothing choices. Additionally, she tends to burp and fart inappropriately and finds it amusing. While my cousin has also made similar rude remarks to me, I have learned to cope with it over the years. During her teenage years, for instance, she went around telling everyone that I was her boyfriend. And when I asked her to stop, she resorted to calling me Stinky Butt as a nickname, which is the only way she addresses me now. It is important to note that my cousin has a challenging personality and displays rudeness that exceeds what most people would consider acceptable, even for someone with Down syndrome. However, her hurtful words affect my fiancé deeply. For instance, at another wedding last year, my cousin took the microphone during the toast and rambled for around 5 minutes. It was an uncomfortable moment during an otherwise beautiful ceremony. The couple getting married were not even familiar with her. After explaining the situation to my mom, I asked her to inform my aunt's family that they are not invited to the rehearsal dinner, but they are still welcome to join us for the reception. I expressed my concerns about my cousin's behavior and the need to establish boundaries. In response, my mom started crying and made a passive-aggressive comment, suggesting that if I had to choose between family and my wife, I should prioritize my wife's wishes. She also hinted at not wanting to see us anymore. It is important to mention that we are not particularly close to this aunt. I simply do not want my cousin calling me Stinky Butt on my wedding day, farting and laughing during the ceremony, or mocking my bride's appearance and dress. After discussions, I was able to convince everyone involved that my cousin can attend, but she must leave immediately if her behavior becomes disruptive. However, my concern right now is that there might be disagreements about what constitutes acting up. I am almost certain that my cousin will do something that will prompt me to ask my aunt to take her home, and I will do so. Unfortunately, this might lead all sides involved to view me negatively. I'm unsure about what steps to take in this situation. You're not the asshole in this situation. It's completely reasonable for you to have concerns about your cousin's behavior and how it might impact your wedding day. It's understandable that you wouldn't want someone who has a history of being rude and disruptive to attend such an important event. You have made efforts to compromise by allowing your cousin to come, but with the condition that she leaves if she acts up. This shows that you are trying to find a solution that accommodates everyone's needs. It's unfortunate that your mom reacted in a passive-aggressive manner and stated that you have to choose between family and your wife. That is not fair and puts unnecessary pressure on you when you are already dealing with wedding preparations. It's important for your mom to understand and respect your concerns as well. It's possible that there may be disagreements about what constitutes acting up, but you have set a clear boundary, and it's up to your aunt to ensure that her daughter adheres to it. If your cousin does cross the line, it is understandable for you to ask your aunt to take her home, as it is your special day, and you deserve to have a celebration without disruptions. Remember, this is your wedding day, and it's important for you and your future spouse to feel comfortable and happy. Setting boundaries and addressing concerns is necessary to ensure that the day goes smoothly. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.